everyone, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I've been saying, whether it's rain or shine, for years on end that I firmly believe that XRP at some unknown point in the future will hit a new all-time high and enter price discovery. And I have very little doubt of that occurring at some unknown point in the future. I have strong conviction for reasons I've been articulating for years on end, and I don't want to talk about that as much in this video, but I would like to share with you some additional thoughts on things that I really barely ever talk about. I've talked about a handful of times in videos over the years, but it's important stuff because I firmly believe that even if, and there will be some of you listening, I'm sure that some of you listening are going to make an absolute fortune on XRP, and there will be others that don't. I mean, some people are going to botch this, let's be real. Not everybody's going to make it to the finish line, but there's the opportunity, so you know, it's all up to us to make our own adult decisions, but I firmly believe everyday people, and I'm just a regular everyday person, nothing special about me, so all of you listening, we all have the opportunity for this, but there's some ways to botch this up, and I want to share with you a couple thoughts that I just see pretty much nobody in crypto ever talking about. And it's just, it sounds boring, and I promise I'm not trying to be your daddy. We all know that your daddy is Gary Gensler, just go ask him. But he's the one that controls it. He's in charge of all of us. But it's worth being aware of some things. I just want to share with you some of my perspective on this. And it's okay if you look at the world differently and you wouldn't want to handle things the way that I'm. Well, it's fine. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Nothing of the sort. To be clear, I don't have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and so you shouldn't buy or sell anything because of anything I say. Right? I really do. Just on what I'm going to say today, I just think it's fun to think through this stuff, and I love getting perspectives from other people, especially if you happen to disagree. That's fun. We can disagree on stuff like this and still be friends. It's just finance, right? But I think some people, they might not recognize when a top is probably approaching for XRP, resulting in them missing like a fortune of a lifetime. Like, it's so easy for people to get too greedy. But on the flip side, also, if you're worried about selling too soon, my gosh, I'll tell you this, like what it will take to have truly life-changing wealth holding XRP, I think it's going to take just about nothing. I think that you don't need a ton of XRP to truly have life-changing wealth, and it might not be for the reason that you're thinking of. And it also depends on what you want to do with it. There are so many people that are just very spendy, and it kind of depends on how you're wired. Like, there's all sorts of research on this, and it's very interesting. I've looked into it myself. I happen to be wired in such a way that spending money is painful for me. For other people, it lights them up, and their brains get all excited, and you really are literally just wired differently. And there's pros and cons to both, to be honest with you. Because it can be the case that sometimes I should probably live a little bit more, but for other people, the opposite of me, maybe they're living a little bit too much. And the good news is for people that are wired like me, and there will be some listening that are this way, and there'll be some that aren't, and that's fine. We're all different. It's not some sort of mean critique or anything. I'm just observing reality. The good news is for people, if you're like me and you find it painful to spend, data shows that the people that are wired like us end up rich. Like, we're much more likely to end up rich than people that don't find it painful to spend. But even if you don't find it painful to spend money like I do, or at least not to the same degree, if you want to be rich, there are things that you can do, including investing in crypto, I believe anyway, that will safeguard you, but it requires being an adult and being patient. And once you make your XRP fortune, which again, I think so many people listening are going to, like, maybe don't blow it all on hats, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe keep the vast majority of it and turn it into more money by investing it into something that isn't crypto, something that's historically less risky, so you can sleep even easier at night tonight. Because after we go through all these years on end, for many of us, imagine you finally get your XRP, whether it's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, whatever it is. Can you imagine having that and then it's all gone in a matter of years through poor decision making or just spending it on crap? Like, that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. And that's why I want to show you like how little you actually need to have life-changing wealth, but different people have different goals. And so that's why I'm going to plug in some numbers into a little calculator for you and show you what I'm talking about right here. This is the eighth wonder of the world. What is on your screen right now? This is the eighth wonder of the world. Compound interest, not the calculator itself, but compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. This compound interest is what will make you rich, just generally speaking. Now, of course, crypto, there will be no shortage of fortunes to be made in crypto. That's what I'm almost always talking about. But let's play out a couple hypothetical scenarios. Because look, like I said, I firmly believe in fine. I could be wrong. Maybe XRP goes to zero. I'm not pretending there's no risk in holding XRP. I always say that. I mean it. I could be wrong. It could all go to zero. I just don't think it will. I'm betting accordingly. You all make your own bets. I'm not telling you what to do. But let's say it does hit a new all-time high. Hell, let's say it goes to $10, which really would be kind of conservative. I mean, I don't remember exactly what that would give it in terms of market cap, but Bitcoin's already been past that. So we know humans are capable of valuing assets in such a way that they could have such a market cap, right? So that's not wacky to think, especially if you're talking about in the future ultimately having coins with market caps, individual market caps, multi-trillion dollar ranges. Like, why wouldn't we have an asset class on the whole that's worth at least tens of trillions of dollars, if not at some point over 100 trillion in a mature market? And if XRP is going to be part of that long term, my gosh, you're talking about just XRP last market cycle ran up to damn near $4, not based on utility. It already ran up to $4. Can you imagine if it runs to 10? And so look, here, compound interest, for those of you who are unaware, the best way to explain it is you've got money, you invest it in something, and then once it becomes worth more, there are a couple things you can do. You could take that profit out, put it back to where whatever the dollar figure is that you initially invested, you could take that little profit out, or you could let it ride. Now that it's worth more because some time has passed and interest has accrued, it's worth that much more. And then you're like, okay, well, now there's a bigger ball of wax there. I'm going to let the bigger ball of wax, and it's slightly bigger. It's only been accruing for a short period of time, but I'm going to let that ball of wax get even bigger, and then even bigger, and then even bigger, and then even bigger. And in the first few years, it may not seem like it's doing much. But over many, many years, it gets freaking gigantic. It's life-changing. So that's why I wanted to tell you, like, yeah, for some of you, life-changing wealth from XRP, it means millions of dollars. And again, I don't think that's impossible. But I just wanted to share with you that even if it's hundreds of thousands, you may not recognize how life-changing that would be unless you just want to have the money to go balling out of control. But I'll tell you, that's not so much what I'm going to be doing. That's not my lifestyle, folks. It's okay to buy things. It's okay to go on trips, do all that stuff. It's the type of person that is going to get all wacky with it and showy about it and then spend a crazy amount. Like, that's a very different person than me. I just want to have it because what's most important to me is financial security. That's more important to me than stuff, generally speaking. You know, and I've always been like that. That's the way that I'm wired here. But let's say that XRP runs to $10 and you sell it. Now, if you have, let's say you have, I'm just making up numbers here to play with something. But let's say you have 20,000 XRP. I'm just making up a number. And that may be more than a lot of you have, but it's also less than many of you listening have. I know that too. I'm just picking a number just so we can get the thought process rolling here. But let's say you have 20,000 XRP, and let's say XRP reaches a point where it's worth $10 each. Well, if you sold it exactly at that mark, you would have $200,000. Now, setting aside the fact, for the sake of simplicity for this conversation, that certain regions of the world, including the United States, you will get hit with taxes. I understand that. So even if you have long-term capital gains tax in the United States, you're still going to get hit with at least 20%. But let's just throw that out just for the ease of conversation. Let's just assume you actually get the full $200,000, right? Well, what would that be after here? Let's go ahead and say what would that be if you invest it in an index fund? Let's say it's the S&P 500. And by the way, you should be aware of what the rates are. I pulled this up just for the sake of this video. This is just from Investopedia.com. The S&P 500 has actually been around since the 1920s, although back then it was tracking only 90 stocks. In 1957, they began tracking 500 stocks, so it went from just being S&P to, I guess, S&P 90, if you will, to being the S&P 500. But it's the same index. They just slightly changed it. But if you look back at that fund, which is just in the United States, the top 500 publicly traded companies, that's what it is now, the top 500. Well, if you go back to the 20s, at the inception of this thing, the average return is 10.49%. 10.49%. Now, that, mind you, that means there are some years where maybe you're up 25%. There were also some years where you were literally down. Your net worth went down, and that's where the panic selling from people comes in, which is a really bad idea. You can't time markets. You just need to know that sometimes your net worth is going to be down for a year or two, and then it goes way back up. And you just want to make sure you have exposure, because then it just doesn't matter and you don't need to lose sleep at night. That's the point, right? But the average since the 20s is 10.49%. Now, if you go to 1957, the average annual return since 1957 is 10.67%. So for the sake of easier numbers, I just assume that the interest rate return will be 10%. And some people dispute what you'd actually get. It depends on the fund you're actually putting it in. So if you want to be extra conservative, fine. Plug in 8%. I don't care. You still need to understand what the time value of money is. So look, if you let this thing grow here, let's just play with it. Let's say you got $200,000. You let it grow for 1 year at 10%. It's not going to be that impressive. Your $200,000 is now worth $220,000. Well, that's not life changing. Well, okay. I mean, for some, maybe they still would say it is, but another 20 grand I had to wait a whole year. Well, that doesn't sound very magical. Matt, you said this was the 8th wonder of the world, damn it. I was like, well, slow down there, Chief. Let's now change it. Let's say that you let it grow for 5 years, okay? Now let's recalculate that. Your $200,000 is now worth $322,000. Well, that's a little bit better. Let's let it grow for 10 years, though. That $200,000 is now worth $518,000. Oh, okay. What if we let that grow for 20 years? Your $200,000 would be worth $1,345,000, and I'm rounding it here. So you get the cut of my jib, and I understand. So, like, I'm 39 years old, and there are people listening that are younger and older. I understand if you're, in your 60s or something, then the idea of waiting 20 years is less appealing. But it depends on where you're at. It depends on, there's a lot of factors here. I'm just pointing this out because nobody's talking about this. And what I'm telling you is that even if you, like, in quote unquote, only end up with $200,000, oh, cry me a river. Invest it. Don't spend any of it. Or if you really want to, fine, you do what you want. But I'm saying if you invest it, if history just keeps on chugging along like it has for over 100 years, then in 20 years, that amount, that $200,000, would be worth over $1.3 million. And to me, for someone like me anyway, who just, I don't feel like I need to buy a bunch of crap. Well, I'm not against nice things, don't get me wrong. It's fine. Have a nice house, have a nice car, whatever. But I'm just saying, live beneath one's means. Where people mess up is they engage in this lifestyle creep as they make more money, generally speaking. And that's where people get really bitten on the rear side, especially if you get a lump sum, if you get a windfall. Just be careful, because the thing that might be best for you is to just have the financial security so that you have freedom in life. Like, to me, that's way more valuable than having things and taking on debt to have those material things. It's not going to bring you happiness. Spoiler alert. Your friends and family, those are the things in life that will provide people the most happiness here. And so, yeah, it's fun to have the toys, fine. But what about your value system? What about family? What about friends? What about the fact that even just $200,000, I can't believe I'm saying just $200,000, would still make you a millionaire over time? Okay, but let's say you earn more, because a lot of people are anticipating that they're going to get more, and I think a lot of people will, actually. Let's just say that instead of $200,000 in your XRP invest, actually, no, let me pause. I want to say this too, to explain how easy this is to happen. Like, let's say this happens. Let's say XRP just goes to $10. Let's say that's it. Well, it's only 32 cents today, so you understand that if you invest, and this is not me telling you to do this, but if you invest roughly $6,400 at the current price, or that would give you basically 20,000 XRP. That alone would make you a millionaire. Like, even just that under this hypothetical scenario, right? Which I think is plausible, by the way. And so I'm starting low just to kind of illustrate the point. Now, I can get way more wacky, as you'll see as I go through this video. Oh, I can get bonkers. You find if you're the balling out of control type, you'd find maybe you can be balling out of control. But understand, $6,400, well, it could be a lot of money to people. You understand that that averages out to, if you dollar cost average in over a year, like at the current price level anyway, and I know it fluctuates, but I'm just, for simplicity's sake, it's only $533 a month. People spend more on car payments, which is an asset that in normal times depreciates, and they will go back to depreciating. And this inflation stuff it's impacting, and there's a chip shortage, all that stuff. No, they're going to go back to depreciating, my friends. And so there are all these people that have, taken out loans, 72 months, whatever the monthly payment comes out to, on an asset that is ultimately going to depreciate, and they bought it at an inflated price if they bought it recently. That's unfortunate. So people don't have money to do this, right? Well, I mean, you do if you're listening, I'm guessing. To some degree, anyway. But I'm just saying, it doesn't take that much money to have this ridiculous impact where think about yourself 10 or 20 years down the road, even just a small amount could be, right? And that's why I'm starting. Again, I'm going to share with you some wackier numbers because I do think some people are going to have those wackier outcomes too. I do believe it's plausible. It's very possible. But I'm just trying to make the point that even if you're starting on a smaller scale like this, it still gets insane really, really fast, right? So now let's consider this. Let's say that instead of earning $200,000 in profit from your sale of XRP, let's say it's $500,000. Let's say you let that ride out for here. We'll start low. Let's start at 5 years. Say you got $500,000. You let it grow for 5 years at 10% interest. Your $500,000 in just 5 years becomes $805,000. And how much money did you actually have to put in? Dollar cost averaging? My gosh, nowhere near that much under this particular hypothetical. Okay, well, what if you let it grow for 10 years? That $500,000 just became $1,296,000 in just 10 years. Okay, well, let's say you're really, really long term. You don't touch it. What will your $500,000 be in 20 years? Your $500,000 would turn into $3,363,000 if you don't touch it. Okay, well, just for fun. What if you let it ride another 5 years? So 25 years total. You don't touch it. Average return of 10%. Investing a boring way. But, something you can sleep at night investing in, an index fund, right? It's very boring. There's nothing sleek or sexy about it. Crypto's way more exciting, but let's say you did. 10% interest, 25 years with your $500,000 in XRP earnings. What happens after 25 years? Your $500,000 would be worth $5.4 million. Compound interest, my friends. The eighth wonder of the world. Okay, so let's say, though, that you are one of these people that hits it big. And you actually let's say you crank out a cool million investing in XRP. You are one of the fortunate ones. You with whatever quantity you got and wherever XRP tops off, whether it's $10 or $20 or who knows if it gets up to $30 or I don't know. Let's just say whatever it is with the blend of how long you held it to get it to that price and considering how much you're holding, let's say you actually did end up with that 7-figure payday, $1 million. What would that look like after 5 years in this compound interest calculator? Oops, oh, that was wrong. I had to punch it in wrong. After 5 years at 10% interest, your $1 million becomes $1.6 million. Okay, a free $600,000 for just not touching it? That's interesting. Okay, well, what if we're talking about 10 years? After 10 years, your $1 million becomes $2.59 million. Okay, what does you see how this compounds very quickly? Once you get to this point where it just snowballs and really, really quickly. Okay, so what would your 1 million be after 20 years invested in boring old index fund at 10%? Okay, let's go ahead and calculate. After 20 years, it would be $6.7 million. From 1 million to 6.7 in 20 years. Now, there are a lot of you listening in your 20s. I promise you, one day you're going to be 45. If you're 25, one day you're going to be 45. 45-year-old you will be so thankful that you were smart with money and didn't blow it all on hats or stupid stuff. Have fun. I'm not saying don't live. I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon. I'm just giving you another way of looking at this from a guy that's wired in such a way that spending money is painful, and I'm very fiscally responsible. I live substantially beneath my means. Substantially, and I'm doing fine. I really am. You wouldn't know it from looking at me, generally speaking, but it is what it is. So what if you waited that extra 5 years since we did it for the last one? What would that 1 million turn into after 25 years earning at 10% interest? After 25 years, 1 million becomes 10,834,000. And so that's why I'm saying, like, we're just talking about XRP here. You may have other cryptocurrencies, so it depends on what your time horizon is. And I understand also if, you're further along in life, then this sounds less appealing and you just want to get what you want to get. And I get it. So there's a lot of moving parts to all this, and it's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. Totally get that. I just wanted to share with you some interesting ways in looking through this and share with you a little bit about how I look at the world. I don't talk about myself hardly at all on this channel, but I am not a spendy type of guy. And it's not because I don't like nice stuff. It's because spending is painful. And I don't care that much. Not enough. It doesn't mean I won't. Like the night, like, okay, so I did buy a nice car last year, and I even put like a couple of tweets out about it. I bought a Maserati Gran Turismo. I've always liked them. I've kind of wanted one for years, and I'm finally like, it was painful for me to buy it, not because it was unreasonable for me to buy it, not because I couldn't afford it, but because purchases are painful to me. That's what I said. Like, that's how I am wired. It's always going to be like that for me. So I have to fight so that I do something for myself. And so I bought this car, but I didn't get a new one. I wanted something that had already heavily depreciated. So when it was new, I have the window sticker. When it was new, it was worth $142,000. And I paid 54 grand for it. That's it. It's lost the strong majority of its value. And yeah, it'll maybe drop a little bit under normal times. But so what? I can sell it and I can get that back. And I understand since I'm doing that and I'm living a little bit in that sense. But it's a used car, folks. I'm talking about buying a damn used car, and I bought it in cash. So it's like, I'm not against, to be clear, I'm not against nice stuff. But all good things in moderation. And the reason I felt comfortable doing it is because, again, I'm not taking on debt to do it. And the rest of my fiscal house is in order. You know, my general approach to stuff in life, if you want to make sure you end up wealthy, just listen to this. Buy stuff if you can afford it, okay? Live beneath one's means. I know this doesn't sound cool or sexy, but it is boring, but that's what works. There's so much data on all of this here. Just take it from me. I'm 39 years old. I've been living this life, and it works. I'm not going to talk about my personal net worth, and I'm not saying I'm some crazy rich guy. I'm not. But that doesn't mean that I'm not doing well. I'm doing just fine. I feel, I don't know if I'll ever change my opinion on this, but I kind of feel like douchey talking about certain things, and I think I'd rather just hold that back. But I'm trying to share a little bit more, since I typically don't, just to try and get these ideas across. You know, buy something if you can afford it, right? And so I'm not saying don't have any fun if you have crazy returns. Yeah, fine, live a little if you want to. But I'm just saying, if you're not holding back the strong majority of whatever the hell you're earning and then investing it in something boring that's not risky, that'll make you a bunch of money over time, I think that's a mistake. I think boring's pretty damn good. Once you've got it, you don't want to lose it, do you? Well, I sure as hell don't, and so I'm not going to. It's also the reason that, since I understand all of this stuff, when stocks are down like now, and when crypto's down like now, I don't give a damn, because I know it doesn't matter, and I know markets come back. So that's why I said, again, we did average of 10%, but there are years where you'll be up like 25%, and that's insane. But then, like I said, it could be a year, maybe you're down 14 or 15%. It just happens. And it's not worth crying over. It doesn't matter. It's about the average. And this is based on so much real data, over 100 years worth of data. Anybody listening to me right now can do this. In fact, even if you could never invest in crypto, if you just don't have a car payment and you drive a junker for a while because you're responsible, which I admire when people drive crappy cars so they can save and it's for their financial future. I admire that. You know, if you just do that, just eliminate the car payment, you can save $500 a month right there. You understand what that means after a lifetime of fiscal responsibility. You're going to be wealthy as hell. You can just be like a middle-class individual your entire life and be a multimillionaire if you just start planning young enough. That's the truth. And like, nobody talks about that. Not literally nobody, but not enough people know this. This isn't sufficiently taught in grade school. And so that's why I'm sharing with you, like, if you think that 200 grand or 300 grand or 400 grand isn't enough and it's not life-changing enough, I encourage you to think a little bit differently. Because for most people, if you understand what that means for your financial future and you understand compound interest, it is life-changing. It's gigantic. It's hard to overstate how big of a deal this is. And then, yeah, just delay the gratification, and then say you do let it accumulate for a decade or two. Well, then it's a lot easier to justify taking a piece of it, right? Like if you want to buy your mansion or something, okay. I'm just saying, and no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, live beneath your means. I don't care if you got $1 billion. Maybe you don't buy the $800 million yacht then. Maybe you get the $100 million yacht. I don't care who you are, how much you're making, live beneath one's means. It's an important message that isn't taught sufficiently in school, in my humble opinion. So again, I'm not trying to be sour. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to get at here. It's just like, this is why I'm so excited about crypto and finance in general. I'm most excited about crypto for obvious reasons. There's so much opportunity here, but my gosh, don't feel like you have to have this 7-figure payday to be a multimillionaire, because it's just not true. It isn't true. Now, maybe that'll happen for you, and I hope it does. I hope everybody makes an absolute fortune here. But even if you don't get that much, geez. And again, we're just talking about XRP, or most of you hold a bunch of other cryptos too. Like, what if those take off? You know? And you actually take some profit. So you could be your own worst enemy, though, when it comes to deciding when to pull the trigger on this stuff. You have to decide for yourself, because again, I'm not advising on that. This is just like a fun thing to think through. To me, it's a very interesting topic, always has been, and I almost never talk about it on the channel. But just understand that it's not some sin to exit your position in XRP or pick your crypto over time and not hit the top. That's perfectly okay. That's my opinion. It's perfectly okay, because you can't hit the top because you don't know when it's going to come in. That's why exiting makes sense. The same as dollar cost averaging in when you want to build up your position, which typically makes the most sense during bear markets. Well, you don't worry about if you bought the bottom, because you didn't buy the bottom. It's probably going to go lower, right? That's normal. That's totally normal here. But there will be people that get a little bit too greedy. This $500,000, it's not enough. But then there are people I'm telling you, I've seen it from people in the XRP community. There's one guy I have in mind who had at the peak all of it, not just XRP, but all of his crypto. He's part of the XRP community though. He's like being honest and sharing his mistake to help people. But he had over $600,000 in crypto profit on paper. But then the market crashed and he didn't sell. He sold like a small bit of it, said, but not much. And it ended up being worth, at the time when he wrote that, it was down to like $100,000. So think about that. And so obviously markets recovered since then. It took years. But the point being, like, that is life-changing. And even if you think 600,000 isn't enough for you, and it is for some people, and for some people it isn't, it's all relative. But even if you think it's not, that's why I'm saying, would it change your calculus for your personal position based on what I said about compound interest? If you hadn't considered that, the answer for you might be yes. Maybe it's not. That's fine too. But if the answer is yes, let's think about that. $600,000, my gosh. Over X amount of time at 10% interest on average, whew, you can be insanely wealthy. Anybody can do this too. That's why it's most important to start younger. And I feel for people that weren't sufficiently taught this, who were even older than me. I still wish it was kind of hammered into me even more at a younger age, but, I've still certainly been taking advantage of this knowledge, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, the career path is not as important to accumulating wealth. It's personal responsibility, personal financial responsibility. You could be doing almost anything. You could be doing a job where people don't historically think that is going to make you rich, but it can. Whether you're making 40 or 50 or 60,000 a year, which is perfectly reasonable amount of money, perfectly respectable amount of money to earn, whatever it is. But that can make you that. See what I'm saying? So it is where it is what it is. But, by the way, too, I'll mention this before wrapping up, since I never talk about myself, just to give you an idea of how cheap I am. So, really that car, that Maserati that I bought, the Gran Turismo convertible, it's a very fun car, by the way. I barely ever drive it, though. It's not meant to be a daily driver, so far as I'm concerned. But anyway, since it's not my daily driver, and I've barely ever engaged in any lifestyle inflation, which is just the lifestyle inflation. It's just this idea of, as you make more money, people tend to spend more and more money. I haven't done that. As I've made a lot more money over the years, I've saved insanely more, which is completely inverted from what most humans do. But again, I like what I'm doing, because it's been accumulating like crazy, and I've been also buying insane amounts of crypto. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. But anyway, the other car that I was driving was a 2009 Ford Escape, and I bought that thing. When did I buy it? I guess that's in 2013. Unfortunately, that thing I was in an accident, and I was fine. I tweeted about it in January. Just spun around. Man, that thing was a trooper, though. I mean, I bought it with like 65,000 miles. It had like, I think 193,000 by the time it was totaled on the highway. But what the hell did I care that, I'm telling you, I promise I'm doing just fine. I was driving this car from 2009 and 2021, and it was fine. It got me from A to B. I mean, that's not that I wouldn't have ever upgraded anyway. But I'm just saying this, like, don't feel like you have to keep up with people. When I see cars on the road, I know the data. And when I don't know who took out the car loan. Some of you listening, this is not to shame you, but like, to me, that's just not the way I live. But when I look at cars, the data says that most of those cars, that doesn't represent wealth, that represents debt. These are people that took on debt to be perceived, and some of them anyway, to be perceived in a certain way. Whereas I'm driving this car, I'm doing just fine, and people might think I'm not doing well. Well, you can suck it, because I'm doing just fine, and if I had to guess, just based on data, you're not doing as well because you're taking out the loan. So if anything, so I'm not judging, like, I don't pretend to know who's like taking out loans, but you get the point, right? So I don't worry about that stuff. And actually, do still need to replace that thing. I've actually, ever since that, I've been driving one of my mom's old cars. It's like this 2006 Tucson. It is like freaking awful. But I don't drive that much also, so it hasn't bugged me too much. It's just, it is kind of an awful car. 2006 Hyundai. So it's so funny to like drive that, and then I'll just hop in the Maserati. I was like, well, this is very different. This is very different. So I'm going to replace it. I just don't care enough. I mean, I'm going to. But I'm just trying to show you a different way of looking at it that isn't perceived as cool. Like, people like the flashiness, and you see people in crypto making a ton of money and showboating and this and that. Well, fine, buy your nice stuff, but to me that shows a different value system that I'm just not in tune with. Like, I'm never going to be that, but that doesn't mean I'm against having exotic cars, okay? Clearly, I'm not against having an exotic car or a mansion. That's perfectly fine. I just look at it differently, but most people just don't know what the hell they're doing. So, all right. I guess that's most of what I wanted to say. I'm sorry if the video was too long. Thank you very much for making it to the end. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, and I'm sure there'll be a mixture of both of those things. Again, I do appreciate. Thank you very much for the support on this channel, especially during these trying times in the bear market. Let me know what you think, your personal opinion on in the comment section below. And again, I'm not sitting. I hope this didn't come across. Like, I'm not sitting here judging people negatively. I'm just sharing the way that I look at the world, because it may be different than the way that you look at it. And I'm hoping for some people that would be helpful. And if it's not helpful to you, then hopefully at least it was interesting to hear another person's perspective. But that's fine. You know, I love diversity of thought, and I'm not right about everything. But this is what I think on this topic, right? There's just so much opportunity here. So even as markets are down today in crypto, I'm like, so what? Can you start to see why I just don't give a damn? Because like I've said before, like, the secret to me not emotionally responding is I genuinely don't care. Do you see why I don't care, though? I'm so far beneath my means. I understand the data. I know how the S&P has performed for over 100 years. I know crypto's behaved for over a decade. Why would I lose sleep at night? This is an incredible opportunity. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say, all right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.